I never thought I'd be in this situation. All I wanted was to help out a friend in need, but now I find myself regretting every moment of it. It all started when my wife's childhood friend, Harper, and her husband lost their house. My wife, Susan, came home one evening with a troubled expression, her phone pressed tightly against her ear as she paced the living room. I watched her, concern knotting my stomach. "What's wrong, babe?" I finally asked, setting aside the book I was reading. Susan glanced at me, her brow furrowed. "It's Harper and Ryan," she said, referring to her friend and her husband. "They've lost their house. They have nowhere to go." My heart sank at the news. I'd known Harper and Ryan for years, and despite Harper's flirtatious tendencies, they were good people. "That's terrible," I murmured, running a hand through my hair. "What are they going to do?" Susan sighed, sinking onto the couch beside me. "I don't know. They've been struggling for a while now, but this is bad. They need a place to stay, at least until they can get back on their feet." I nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We have the space," I said finally, meeting Susan's gaze. "But are you sure about this? It's a big decision to let them move in with us." Susan hesitated, chewing on her lower lip. "I know it's a lot to ask," she said softly. "But they're our friends, and they need our help. I couldn't live with myself if we turned them away." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "Okay," I said reluctantly. "If it means that much to you, then we'll do it. But we need to set some ground rules, make sure everyone understands boundaries." Susan nodded, relief flooding her features. "Thank you," she said, leaning in to press a kiss to my cheek. "I'll talk to Harper and Ryan tomorrow and let them know." As Susan left the room to make the call, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled in my chest. Little did I know, this decision would change everything. At first, Harper's flirtatious behavior seemed harmless. She was always a bit playful, and I never took it seriously. But as time went on, her advances became more overt, more persistent. It wasn't just innocent banter anymore. It was making me uncomfortable. One evening, as I was preparing dinner in the kitchen, Harper sauntered in with a teasing smile on her lips. "Need any help, handsome?" she purred, leaning against the countertop in a way that was far too suggestive for my liking. I forced a tight smile, trying to ignore the knot of unease in my stomach. "No, thanks, Harper. I've got it covered," I replied, hoping she'd take the hint and leave me to my cooking. But Harper didn't seem deterred. Instead, she moved closer, her gaze lingering on me in a way that made my skin crawl. "You know, you're a catch, you know that," she said, her voice dropping to a husky whisper. I swallowed hard, feeling my pulse quicken. "Harper, please," I said, my tone bordering on pleading. "I'm married, and you're married. This isn't appropriate." Harper's smile faltered for a moment, but then she shrugged, as if my objection was inconsequential. "Just having a little fun, that's all," she said, brushing off my discomfort as if it were nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was unsettling, and it was starting to wear on me. I couldn't shake the feeling that Harper's behavior was crossing a line, and I didn't know how to make it stop. Later that night, as I lay in bed beside my wife, I couldn't shake the memory of Harper's flirtatious advances. "Susan," I murmured into the darkness, my voice barely above a whisper. "We need to talk about Harper." I knew I had to do something to address the situation with Harper. Her flirtatious behavior was becoming increasingly uncomfortable, and I couldn't continue to ignore it. So one evening after dinner, I sat down with my wife, Susan, to discuss our next steps. "Susan, we need to talk about Harper," I began, my tone serious as I looked into my wife's eyes. Susan frowned, concern flickering across her features. "What about her?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. "She's been crossing some boundaries," I said carefully, choosing my words with precision. "Her flirtatious behavior, it's making me uncomfortable." Susan's frown deepened, and she nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. I've noticed it too, she admitted softly. I didn't want to say anything, but it's been bothering me as well. I let out a sigh of relief, grateful that Susan was on the same page as me. We need to set some ground rules, I said firmly. Make it clear to Harper and her husband that this behavior is not acceptable. Susan nodded in agreement, determination shining in her eyes. You're right, she said, her voice firm. We'll sit down with them tomorrow and lay down the law. The next day, Susan and I gathered Harper and her husband, Ryan, in the living room for a serious conversation. I could feel the tension in the air as we broached the topic, but it was a conversation that needed to be had. Harper, Ryan, we need to talk about something important, Susan began, her voice steady as she addressed our guests. We appreciate you staying with us during this difficult time, but there have been some issues that we need to address. Harper and Ryan exchanged a glance, confusion evident in their expressions. What kind of issues? Ryan asked, his brow furrowed in concern. It's about Harper's behavior, I interjected, my tone firm, as I met Harper's gaze head-on. Her flirtatious advances towards me have been making me uncomfortable, and it needs to stop. Harper's eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment, she seemed taken aback by my directness. But then, to my dismay, she let out a dismissive laugh. Oh, come on, it's all in good fun, she said, waving off my concerns as if they were nothing. But I refused to back down. It's not good fun when it's making someone uncomfortable, I said firmly, my voice unwavering. We need to establish boundaries, for the sake of everyone involved. Susan nodded in agreement, her support giving me strength. We're not asking for much, he added, her tone gentle but firm. Just a little respect, that's all. Harper and Ryan exchanged another glance, and this time, there was a hint of resignation in their expressions. Okay, Ryan said finally, his tone subdued. We understand. We'll be more mindful of our behavior from now on. Relief flooded through me as I realized that our message had been received. It was a small victory, but it was a step in the right direction. Little did I know, however, that our troubles were far from over. Despite our efforts to establish boundaries, Harper's behavior continued to escalate, pushing me closer to my breaking point. It was a warm summer evening when things finally came to a head. I had just finished a long day at work and was looking forward to a quiet evening at home with my wife. But as I stepped through the front door, I was met with an unexpected sight. Harper was lounging on the couch, a glass of wine in hand, wearing a flirtatious smile that made my skin crawl. Hey there, handsome, she purred, her voice dripping with false sweetness as she looked me up and down. I clenched my jaw, struggling to maintain my composure. Harper, we've talked about this, I said through gritted teeth, my frustration bubbling to the surface. This behavior is not acceptable. But Harper just laughed, a sharp, mocking sound that grated on my nerves. Oh, lighten up, she said, waving off my concerns as if they were nothing. Can't a girl have a little fun? I felt my temper flare, my patience wearing thin. This isn't about fun, Harper, I snapped, my voice sharp with irritation. It's about respect, and you're not showing any. Before Harper could respond, my wife entered the room, her brow furrowed in concern as she took in the tense atmosphere. What's going on? She asked, her voice tinged with worry. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions raging inside me. Harper's behavior, I said, my tone heavy with frustration. It's out of control. I can't take it anymore. Susan's expression softened with understanding, and she moved to stand by my side, offering me silent support. Harper, we've tried to be patient, she said, her voice gentle but firm. But enough is enough. You need to leave. Harper's eyes widened in shock, her mask of bravado slipping for a moment to reveal the hurt and confusion beneath. What? She stammered, her voice trembling with disbelief. You can't be serious. But I was serious. I couldn't continue to subject myself and my marriage to Harper's toxic behavior. It was time to take a stand, no matter how difficult it might be. Little did I know, however, that the worst was yet to come. The decision had been made. Harper and her husband had to leave. Despite the awkwardness and tension that hung in the air, my wife and I knew it was the right choice for our sanity and the health of our marriage. But as the deadline we set for them to move out drew closer, the atmosphere in the house grew increasingly strained. Each passing day felt like an eternity, with Harper's presence a constant reminder of the turmoil that had engulfed us. I found myself avoiding her as much as possible, retreating to my office or finding excuses to leave the house altogether. It was a temporary solution, but it offered some semblance of relief from the suffocating tension. One evening, as I sat alone in my office, the weight of the situation pressing down on me, there was a knock at the door. I tensed, my heart rate quickening at the sound. "Who is it?" I called out, my voice cautious. "It's me, Susan," came the reply, my wife's voice soft and hesitant. I let out a sigh of relief, grateful for the familiar sound. "Come in," I said, gesturing towards the door. Susan entered the room, her expression troubled as she took in the sight of me sitting alone in the dimly lit space. "Are you okay?" she asked, her concern evident in her voice. I forced a tight smile, trying to reassure her despite the turmoil raging inside me. "I'm fine," I lied, knowing that she saw through the facade. Susan moved to stand beside me, her hand reaching out to gently squeeze mine. "We need to talk," she said, her voice soft but firm. "About Harper and Ryan." I nodded, knowing that the conversation couldn't be avoided any longer. "I know," I said, my voice heavy with resignation. "We can't keep putting this off." And so we sat down together, the weight of the impending confrontation heavy on our shoulders. We talked late into the night, strategizing and planning our next steps. It wouldn't be easy, but we were determined to see it through to the end. As the days passed and the deadline loomed ever closer, a sense of anticipation filled the air. It was time to take back control of our home, to reclaim the peace and tranquility that had been shattered by Harper's presence. And with each passing moment, I found myself growing more hopeful that we would finally be able to move forward, leaving the chaos and uncertainty behind us. Thank you for listening to the story to the end, and if you like it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you